We've been transparent with the world. We've shared declassified evidence about Russia's plans and cyber attacks and false pretexts so that there could be no confusion or cover-up about what Putin was doing. Putin is the aggressor. Putin chose this war, and now he and his country will bear the consequences.
Yeah, about that. Who's bearing the consequences? I felt that it was important. We talk about a lot of these issues around the edges here on this channel, and when talking about whatever's happening today in the current events. But I thought it was really important here to take a moment to kind of take a 30,000-foot look at this and to really put into context just how bad our policies have been. Now, I could have taken other times and gone back even further because a lot of these problems have been started really since 2008 in the Bucharest summit, when the NATO alliance first said, we're going to go into Ukraine. We're going to invite them into the alliance and go right up to the doorstep with a big arrow pointing right at Moscow. And that really kind of started the stage of this. It was a year later that Russia made its first use of military force to prevent Georgia from coming into the NATO alliance, because it was Ukraine and Georgia in that first tranche in the 2008 Bucharest summit, which were said that was going to come in. That kind of started the fuse. Then you can go into the Obama administration, what happened during the Kiev stuff in 2013, 2014, the Minsk agreement 2015, and so forth, all the way through. Trump giving lots of weapons and other kinds of support to Ukraine, heading into that. A lot of things can go. But I want to focus on from the time of that speech that was made on the first day of the war, February 24th, 2022, until today, just to take a look at just how bad things are and how all the bad decisions that came before that time have been relatively bad. These have been really bad here. And you can see that it has brought the United States, not only has it not brought any peace, has it not brought any increase in our national security, has it not been made us any freer, it has us on the brink of possible war against a nuclear superpower. Let that sink in for a second. A lot of people like Joe Biden personally. A lot of people, certainly millions of Americans, voted for him. Large numbers, scores of millions of people. And especially on the major media, everybody's always focused on the personality. And, some people really like Joe Biden, some don't like him, etc. But especially among those who like him, they see he's a good guy. His intentions are good. He means well. He tries to help this or that constituent. But folks, you have to be gauged and measured on your performance and on the production of what you do, not just your intentions. And on that factor, on that standard, the president of the United States, on the outgoing, has had one of the most horrible impacts on both America and even our allies around the world. What the U.S. should do, what we have long said we are, is this, beacon of hope for the world, the light on a shining hill, as Reagan first coined. And we're the indispensable nation, as Clinton claimed, and as Biden subsequently took on his own during his administration, said the same thing. We're the indispensable nation. We're the leaders. We make things happen. We don't just watch them happen. We are the ones that are pushing it out there, making it happen, making the world better. We're the ones that keep it safe. We're the world's policemen to keep all the bad guys in check. But is that how it's actually happened? Is that what's actually transpired? Just consider on that day, on February 25th or 24th, 2022, we had the possibility there, and actually just before it, I probably could back up until December 2021, where Biden had the opportunity to use negotiated settlement, to use diplomacy to prevent the war from coming at all. Though there were a number of issues at stake, the number one core issue, which had always been there since 2008, was NATO membership into Ukraine. If we had simply taken that off the table and said, all right, there's not going to be any NATO. Well, you know what? They can use the Austrian model, which would be for it, or like Finland had done before. They were very safe, very free. open to do business with whoever they wanted to. Nobody was compelling them to anything. It wasn't any kind of a Munich sort of deal at all. Ask Austria how Munichized they felt after they, in 1956, I believe it was, signed that Treaty of Neutrality, and then they're one of the more prosperous nations in Europe today, and certainly peaceful. Finland was until it got scared because of what had happened in this war and decided to join NATO. And now then they have Article 5 obligations they didn't have before. So we'll see how that works out for them as well, if that turns out to be something that was good. But for all of the decades before that, they were free, prosperous, and had all the liberty that they wanted. They had the ability to do anything. So there was no capitulation in that path. We chose not to take it. No, we decided that nobody's going to tell us who can join NATO and who can't. And so despite what Russia had said, we're going to press forward. And then Putin made good on his threat, which he made in December 2021, that he would use military technical means to correct the situation, which meant war. And that's what he did. He had all these troops around, so we knew it was just under 200,000 troops at the time that were arrayed around Ukraine. We knew what that meant. On that day, Biden could have said, well, crap. I didn't think he would actually do it, but now he did. He could have done what I did on that day and just looked at the balance of power between the two sides. Said Russia has one of the, I think, the biggest land army in Europe. They have this just a massive country of natural resources. They have a defense industrial base and the industrial capacity to create armaments and weapons of war, ammunition, all the things they would need. Ukraine doesn't. It has a relatively small army in comparison. The manpower issue for the available manpower pool of people in Ukraine and the manpower pool in Russia, nowhere close to each other. So there's no point in doing this. All it can do is expand the war and get a lot of people killed, but there's no way we're going to militarily defeat Russia, even if we give them lots of stuff. That's what he should have done then, and then worked on a negotiated settlement. And of course, we had that opportunity in April and May, and we're apparently quite close to it. March and April, we were very close to it in Istanbul. We decided not to do that. And instead, we doubled down, first of many of those, where we said, okay, no, we're going to keep giving you more and more stuff. And we're going to get rid of any possibility of a negotiated settlement. And we're going to go and we're going to set as an objective for you to defeat Russia for as long as it takes. We're going to give that on there. And how many hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian men and women and civilians are dead today because we chose not to end it in a negotiated settlement at that time. Even after, in the second month of the war, we could have ended it, and there would have been some casualties, but then they would have owned all the rest. So even at that point, Mariupol was still in Ukraine control. Severodonetsk, Lysychansk, Bakhmut, Avdiivka, and Kharkova, and just ad infinitum, all kinds of additional cities were under Ukraine control at that time and would still be so today. They would be free today. They would be alive today. Those cities would all be vibrant cities that had a chance to just have normal lives and just people to continue living on as they had in the decades and centuries before. But now all that's gone. One of the other problems said on that day, China and Russia had signed this friendship treaty that knows no bounds, et cetera. I think they had said shortly before that, but that was because of the fact that we were pushing Russia. We were already sanctioning them, threatening to do a lot more. Certainly, we're sanctioning and doing a lot of things against China, pushing pressure on them in regards to Taiwan. So we were already pushing them together, but it was still a little bit, wasn't quite hand in glove because it was this one. Iran and North Korea, they were poles. They had relations and associations with Russia, but at arm's length for sure. Certainly no kind of military engagement other than a handful of exercises here and there, but no kind of military cooperation. Now what do they got? Russia has just signed an actual military treaty with North Korea. Now there are allegedly North Korean troops in Ukraine. They're getting just huge amounts of ammunition and weaponry and other kinds of military support from North Korea to Russia. Apparently, in about a month or so, Russia's going to sign some kind of similar deal with Iran. And that's going to have ramifications even into the Middle East. But it's also more and more weapons support for the Russian side on top of everything that they already have. And by the way, one of the other things that our actions did on that day in 2022, Russia's military was about, I think it was about 900,000 roughly of active force, a total active force. By the end of next month, it's going to be somewhere around 1.5 million. And that's on top of whatever the losses that Russia has sustained, and they're huge by any measure. Some have this outlandish number of 700,000, or maybe 300,000 or 400,000. It's a big number, whatever it is, and they are now 500,000 bigger than they were even with those losses than they were then. We said we wanted to harm Russia. Russia is now stronger, militarily, economically. The whole BRICS issue, I talked about the military alliance of those four nations. There's also the expanding of the BRICS, which is now starting to include even some Western states. And other countries around the world are seeing that there's more stability and possibility in what this group is offering than the Western alliances, than the G20, the G7, et cetera. More people are migrating into here. That's putting more economic pressure on the West, and it's putting at risk the central role of the US dollar, which could have unknown consequences as we go into the future. Those things are all negative consequences of our actions over the last 3 years. Let's look at the Middle East. The Middle East is also a hotbed of activities, and everything we have done there has made things worse, much worse. So we had, with the Trump administration, they've been working on the Abraham Accords, which was increasing the cooperation, the possibility of Saudi Arabia and Israel normalizing relations. That hadn't been done yet, but it was on the table, and they were kind of trying to work into the agreement with it. But the Middle East was in relative stability. Now, October 7th blew that up of 2023. A lot of that was because of the policies that we had. And again, this predates even the Biden administration, but certainly they kept in place, which kept the pressure building in the Gaza Strip and in the West Bank. And then that exploded on October 7th when that terrorist attack against Israel that killed a lot of innocent civilians. And then Israel's overreaction. And that's where things start turning bad. Because Israel in an emotional state and thinking, hey, this is a once in a 50-year opportunity, according to Naftali Bennett, former prime minister, and Biden went right along with it. Sure, whatever you need. Need a bunch of cash, need a bunch of bombs and bullets. Hey, whatever you need, go ahead. And then even when Israel clearly started violating international law, started violating American law with how they were not being discriminate about civilian casualties, and then it became self-evident that they were methodically destroying the Gaza Strip's ability to sustain life, making it increasingly possible that they would try to depopulate it. And then in the last month or so, they've been really taking lots of actions toward that in the north. Now, instead of trying to create the situation to make things better or to put the brakes on Israel, instead we put oil and we grease the tracks. Just keep going as far as you want. And what's been the result of that? Well, now that what had been enemies and balancing powers in the region, now then Saudi Arabia and Iran are coming together. The Sunni and the Shia Islamic states, they're coming actually together. And they're even doing military cooperation. And they're talking about even more normalizing their relations. So what had been balancing power now is starting to come together. Turkey has broken diplomatic relations with Israel. So setting things back. And of course, Egypt and Jordan have been pleading for the U.S. to use its influence to end this war a long time ago, and we don't do it. We continue to exasperate the situation here, causing pressure and problems for both of those countries. And we don't know where that's going to lead either. But militarily, Israel has laid itself on a path that's unattainable. Now, they just got a ceasefire a couple of days ago. We'll see if that holds. We'll see where that goes. But my big concern about that is that it may simply be a use by the Israeli side to just get some rest and a recuperation from the war that they've been fighting for nearly 14 months or so now, so that they can start it back again. They had this 60-day ceasefire, which is not coincidentally just after the change of command in the White House, where President Trump will then take over. And they may feel that they can get a freer hand even more than Biden has done. That remains to be seen. Hopefully the Trump administration will change course on that. Not a lot of, that's more wishful thinking than anything else based on the comments that a lot of people have been making. But what we can say for sure is that what the Biden administration has done has worsened it by allowing Israel to go down a path by supporting it that it cannot accomplish. You're not going to kill your way to success in the Gaza Strip. Whatever happens, you have diminished it for a while because you have severely degraded Hamas's capability, or any of the groups, no matter what they may call themselves, severely degraded. It will take many years to recover. But if you don't address the underlying causes of that war, then it's just going to be waiting until it starts again. Same thing in the Hezbollah in the southern Lebanon. You can say, yeah, we have it'll be a permanent ceasefire as long as you go north of the Litani River or whatever other the details are. But if you don't deal with the underlying causes, they're going to still be a resistance group even after this. And they themselves will use this time to recuperate and to rebuild their strength in time. And then it'll just find out till the next one happens. Until you find some kind of a diplomatic solution that makes it to where people can actually live together, and that they can have some prospect of peace and security, both of them, both peoples, you're never going to have security for Israel. We have not helped security for Israel. They have lost a huge number or a substantial number of their military so far, killed and wounded in this. And what have they got for themselves? A temporary pause only, and have deepened actually the causes of war that started this. They've actually deepened it. So that's not going to help them out either. And so we didn't do anything good by just saying whatever you need for as long as it takes in either Ukraine or in Israel. And of course, we continue to go down the list here, and we've done everything we can to keep the Middle East diplomatically on fire. We've actually helped Israel in its 2 attacks against Iran. To this day, we're still waiting to see if Iran is going to respond to the last Israeli attack against one of its nuclear facilities and some of its other facilities, air defense systems, etc. We don't know what they're going to do. They have vowed that they will retaliate at some point, and Iran doesn't forget these things. And at some point when they think maybe they can do something and Israel has lowered its guard, then they can strike. But that's just another thing, sword of Damocles, just kind of hanging over the situation, which we've done nothing to address. No, we don't even use diplomacy. And that's probably the biggest casualty of all, is the death of diplomacy in the United States. One can only hope that the incoming administration can come in, but literally everywhere you look, and I if I wanted to, I could go into the Indo-Pacific area, and that although that hasn't degenerated into an overt war at this point, we continue to take action again, just like the previous number of administrations have, in worsening ties with China and increasing the agitation between China and Taiwan. We're not helping that. And increasing the possibility that one day that blows up too. So everywhere you look, we love to focus on military first capabilities, and we don't even want to do diplomacy anymore, meaning a win-win situation. This is bad for America, folks. Our standing is so much worse today than it was on February 24th of 2022. I just can't tell. It's hard to overstate how much worse it is. And again, we could be right on the precipice of getting drawn into a war with a nuclear superpower. And God help us if it actually crosses that threshold. If it starts at all, it's going to be a terrible situation. And it's avoidable. Every bit of this has been avoidable by just some sane, rational, realpolitik kind of action. Even if you don't want to care about the other side, that's fine. You can not care about that as long as you do something that's rational, logical, and makes sense. And none of the things we've been doing have. And I pray to God that this doesn't come back to haunt us. And we'll see if the incoming administration has learned any of the lessons from some of the profound failures of the Biden administration. That remains to be seen. I certainly hope so. But we'll keep on top of all this for you. You can count on us, folks. As these things happen, we're going to keep giving you the truth, and we're going to keep telling you what needs to happen and the so what and how we got here like we did here. Thank you very much, and we'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow on Daniel Davis Deep Dive.